Bellying up to the 9-foot homemade oak bar, my name is Craig Tott, your host of Minor League News and Brews, talking about everything around the Pirates minor league system and giving you some beer reviews at the end of the show. Earlier this week, the winter meetings took place down in Nashville, Tennessee. There were rumors of meetings, rumors of signings, rumors of possible trades that could happen. Obviously, some stuff did happen, including the Pirates acquiring a left-handed starter from the Atlanta Braves. Even though he wasn't in Atlanta very long, had just been acquired from the Seattle Mariners. However, I'm going to save that reaction for when I record the Bucs in the Basement podcast with my good friend Chris Lanuti. For today, we are going to be talking about the Rule 5 draft, something that always takes place at the winter meetings, even if it is just in the minor league form, as we've seen within the past couple of years. This time there was a major league portion and a minor league portion. Looking back to I guess it would be the preview show that I did for the Rule 5 draft, I listed out 5 potential targets that the Pirates could potentially select if they decided to select anybody, which is something that I also said I'm not sure if they were going to do. Of those 5 targets, and to just kind of refresh everybody's memories here, I had listed Troy Johnston, first baseman in the Miami Marlins system. Did that one mostly because I felt like a lot of Pirates fans, because of the black hole that has existed over at first base for pretty much a very long period of time, just kind of wanted to give Pirates fans a little bit of information on him. The other one I listed, Cole Wilcox, right-handed pitcher in the Rays system. Matt Thompson, right-handed pitcher in the White Sox system. Taylor Dollard, right-handed pitcher in the Seattle Mariners organization, and Shane Drohan, a left-handed pitcher with the Boston Red Sox. Only one of those was selected. Shane Drohan was taken by the Chicago White Sox with the 4th pick in the Major League portion of the Rule 5 draft, and Drohan wasn't somebody that I saw as a really sexy pick, but I did like the left-handedness. I did like him being in AAA, was the 19th ranked prospect on MLB Pipeline with the Red Sox, slots into the same position with the White Sox. He was drafted in 2020 in the 5th round in that shortened draft out of Florida State University. Pitched 34 innings in Double-A this year, a 1.28 ERA, a 0.824 WHIP. Struggled when he got to AAA. Pitched there for 89 innings, a 6.47 ERA, a 1.865, not a great whip there whatsoever in AAA, but he was somebody that I saw that would probably get selected or had a chance to be selected, and as you can see, he was. When the Pirates came up with the 9th pick, they made no selection, which, like I said, I really didn't know if they were going to, and I'm trying to figure out and wonder if this is a step in the right direction for the Pirates, if there just wasn't anybody that really caught their eye that was left over with that 9th pick. Even with the 9th pick, they could have traded with somebody above them to try to acquire somebody. But as everybody knows, with the Major League portion of the Rule 5 draft, you do have to keep that player on your 26-man roster for the entire season. And It's not something that every player selected in the Rule 5 draft. It's not something that will happen to each of them. So I don't know if it's, the state of the Pirate system, the state of the team, or if it just wasn't anybody there that really caught their eye. I'm hoping this is moving in the right direction because you don't see every team select somebody in the major league portion of the Rule 5 draft, and they would hopefully be looking for an upgrade at one of those positions. Not that, the Pirates actually had some pretty good luck or pretty good scouting with their most recent pickup. Jose Hernandez, left-handed pitcher in the bullpen, performed, fairly well this year. But I mean, I don't know who you're really, gonna find to be able to get somebody that can contribute on your major league roster from the Rule 5 draft is a pretty big rarity. That's why there's such a small list of people who actually stick in the majors for years, perform well at a high level. It's a very short list. So I don't know exactly what that tells us about the Pirates. But I mean, I can't see it really as a negative whatsoever. One thing that was mentioned during this is when the Pirates didn't make the selection, some people had jumped to the conclusion that maybe the Braves player to be named later in the trade with Marco Gonzalez, the Pirates are giving back either cash consideration or a player to be named later. And they were saying that since the Pirates didn't select anybody, that there would more than likely be cash going back to the Braves because the Braves, the player that they maybe wanted wasn't there, which didn't make a ton of sense to me because number one, I mean, the Braves kind of are at a point where would they really want to, number one, select anybody in the Rule 5 draft, and number two, trade for someone who they would have to keep on their roster or give back. To me, I saw it more as that, they usually say that leading up to the Rule 5 draft and different portions, if there are trades that do occur, a lot of times they are for a player to be named later because that player may be on their reserve list and could be selected in the Rule 5 draft. But a lot of times when those trades happen, this is the way it goes down. Is they're like, okay, we'll do a player to be named later. They can't come to an agreement on who that exact player might be. The team, in this case being the Pirates, would give the Atlanta Braves a list of players to choose from, and then they would make that selection. They do have to make that selection within 6 months, or it does, kind of turn into those cash considerations. But I saw that as well. I saw maybe that they would have wanted a Jace Bowen, a Matt Gorski, a Malcolm Nunez. Once again, I really don't see that either. With the Braves, they're pretty much, I mean, then you would have to make a decision on that guy for the following year. It would be just providing depth. For me, I'm thinking that, the Braves have a list of players. I'm not saying that those guys wouldn't be in those lists. I'm thinking it may be, some more of a lower level prospect. Maybe somebody in, the DSL, somebody in the FCL, and of that caliber of prospect. But I really didn't get the reasoning why it's okay. Well, they didn't select anybody, so it's cash going back because the Braves would have wanted them to select somebody, or that it was somebody that was on the reserve list that was, eligible for the Rule 5 draft. I think a lot of that, in my estimation, came from being stuck inside that dome down in Nashville, and that you kind of get, I wouldn't say like a one-track mind, but you kind of get focused on what's going on there, and it's thinking, oh, okay, well, the Rule 5 draft, we have to prepare for that, so we're thinking, that if a player to be named later, it's somebody from the Rule 5 draft. It was confusing thinking to me. I still think it's a list of players, and if somebody doesn't get selected, I mean, I guess you could go with the fact that, yeah, it was a player that, the Braves wanted, or, they decided to not take one of those guys. But I mean, in the end, it's not going to be, I don't think, a prospect of, it's not going to be Shane Baz. It's not going to be Shane Baz, like in the Chris Archer trade, player to be named later. Wrapping up what actually did take place in the Rule 5 draft, the Pirates did not lose a player in the Major League portion. I know that's something that a lot of Pirates fans feared to a degree in possibly losing, a Jace Bowen, a Matt Gorski, a Malcolm Nunez. Jace was one of the, more popular names as somebody who could have potentially been selected, but the Pirates made it through a very uneventful Major League portion, didn't select anybody, didn't lose anybody, but in the minor league portion, where you pretty much do actually lose that player for good, unless somehow that they would appear back in that, that level of selection next year where they would be available in the minor league portion again, where they wouldn't be on a team's AAA reserve list. That's showing that maybe they didn't have a very good season. I guess you could get them back, but this is one where there's not really that return factor there is with the Major League portion where they can be returned to their original team. No, you select these guys, they're in your system. You can put them anywhere in your system that you want to. The players that the Pirates lost, first of all, in the second round to the Twins, Rafael Escalante, a 22-year-old catcher, originally selected / drafted in the international draft period, signing period. He was drafted as, I believe, a middle infielder. This past year in the Florida Complex League, /256, 409, 367, 2 home runs, 15 strikeouts, 23 walks, but, was of an advanced age for that level. So he goes to the Twins in the second round. Also, going to the Rays, Romy Garcia, a right-handed pitcher, 20 years old, also in the FCL this past year, pitched 19 2/3 innings, a 5.03 ERA, and a 1.98 WHIP. Those are ones that kind of go pretty much unnoticed and unfazed by the majority of even Pirates prospect type people like myself. Not that I have anything against these two players, but two players from the FCL. One of them 22 years old, pretty old for that level. Not something that you really kind of bat an eye at. The next two guys that were lost, one was lost to the Padres in Omar Cruz, left-handed pitcher. Everybody will remember that he is one of the players that came back to the Pirates in the Joe Musgrove trade. In his first year in the minor leagues with the Pirates, performed fairly well, did show some promise, especially with his off-speed pitches. This past season in Altoona, 48 innings pitched, a pretty good ERA in 3.94, but the whip sitting around 1.44. So Omar Cruz, kind of one of those pitchers that you were kind of wondering if he would be on that AAA reserve list. If he would have continued the success that he experienced early on after joining the Pirates organization, it's possible, but ends up going to the Padres. And then I felt like, to a degree, Twitter was going to maybe, or I should say X was going to burn to the ground for Pirates prospect fans when Dariel Lopez, 14th ranked prospect for the Pirates from MLB Pipeline, was selected by the San Francisco Giants. Also selected by the San Francisco Giants, kind of as an aside, is Nick Garcia from the Colorado Rockies, who the Colorado Rockies had received from the Pirates for Connor Joe. So two Pirates prospects, and at least former Pirates prospects, going to the Giants. The one thing that I automatically thought of was the 2023 season that Dario Lopez, who had shown some promise in 2022 down in Greensboro, he missed the entire season with a dislocated knee. It was a pretty serious injury. Happened in his off-season workouts, and for him to be ruled out, from the get-go, pretty much for the entire 2023 season, hearing some rumblings about a potential slow rehab, maybe some setbacks that have happened, thinking that it's going to be, a slow process of getting him reacclimated to professional baseball. But then even looking into his 2022 numbers in Greensboro, he slashed 286, 329, 476, a 116 WRC plus, 19 home runs, did have a 25.5% K rate to go along with a 5% base on ball rate, a little bit high there with the K rate, low with the base on ball rate. But I believe we discussed this previously, or I should say I discussed this isn't the royal we here, discussed this previously, is his home and away splits in Greensboro. We talk about the ballpark that the Grasshoppers play in and how it is very, very hitter friendly. At home in 2022, Lopez had a .915 OPS and 15 home runs, while away from that hitter-friendly ballpark, he had an OPS of .692 and only 4 home runs. The injury, coupled with the K rate, coupled with the home road splits, yes, I wish Dario the best. He's a guy that I definitely had, on my radar going into the 2023 season. Unfortunate injury. Best of luck to him out in the San Francisco organization. Now, to who the Pirates brought into their system during that minor league portion. And I believe the Pirates may win some sort of award here for one of the coolest names to be selected during either the major or minor league portion. In the first round, 26 years old, Phineas Delbonto Smith, right-handed pitcher from the Colorado Rockies system. He spent all last year in Double-A, pitched 45 innings, a 5.40 ERA, a 1.556 WHIP, 11 Ks per 9, really good. 4.2 base on balls per 9, really bad. 2.4 home runs per 9, definitely bad as well. This is, somebody that is going to be a depth filler. I mean, you lose players to minor league free agency. You have to recoup those losses and have players to actually fill out your rosters throughout the minor leagues. A lot of the times, that's what the minor league Rule 5 draft is about. We did see, Joshua Palacios uh, make his way from Altoona to Indianapolis, the whole way up to being somewhat of a contributor, at least a spark plug, on the Major League Baseball team after being selected in the minor league portion of the Rule 5 draft. But a lot of times these guys are just going to be those depth fillers. In the fourth round, we get center fielder P.J. Hilson from San Francisco. He spent last year in low A, slashed 247, 283. That's not a good on-base percentage. 420 with 12 home runs. In the third round, taking third baseman Marcos Cabrera from the New York Yankees system. He was in A-plus last year. High A, he slashed 212, 288. Also not a good on-base percentage. And 354 with 6 home runs. But the one who made at least kind of the biggest splash on social media, and it's a name that you should remember if you're a prospect person, and it's a pretty cool name even if you aren't a prospect person, in the second round from the Arizona Diamondbacks system, Seth Beer. And like I said, Beer, pretty cool name, makes for some good, some good memes and different stuff. People may remember that in and around the trade deadline back in 2019, he went from the Houston Astros to the Arizona Diamondbacks in the Zach Greinke trade after being a first-round draft pick for the Astros back in 2018 out of Clemson. He was the number 10 prospect in 2019 in the Astros system, the number 14 prospect in the Arizona Diamondbacks system in both 2020 and 2021. Does have some major league experience, not great major league experience. He has 120 at-bats. He batted 208. His OPS was 586. 2 home runs. Was a pretty highly touted prospect at one point in time. Has, fallen to the wayside. Is now 27 years old. Last year, he started out in Double-A, which isn't good for a prospect of that age. Moved up to Triple-A. Didn't perform as well in Triple-A as he did in Double-A. If you take the average of those numbers, he slashed 273, 365, 451 with 15 home runs. I mean, if you want to maybe think that he is the depth replacement for a player like Mason Martin, that's about as far as my mind can go. I did see some ridiculousness out there on social media that this was the Pirates' first base acquisition for 2024. Believe me, that is not the case. If we see Seth Beer at first base at any point in time during the 2024 season, unless he has a renaissance and goes back to the player that he was in AAA back in 2021, I believe it was, then something has gone very, 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 very wrong. But it's, like I said, a nice little death piece, a cool name, will make for some good, memes coming from the Indianapolis Indians social media department. Other than that, not much going on in either part of the Rule 5 draft. Moving on to, where we It's still being discussed. Could be at some point in time, maybe shipping off or packaging some prospects in a trade to acquire some, major league talent. May learn at some point in time if there is a player to be named later in the Marco Gonzalez acquisition. But for the most part, until players report for spring training and the major and minor league systems are on the horizon, it's gonna get pretty quiet down here in the minors at Minor League News and Brews.
A pitcher of beer, a pitcher of beer, let's order another pitcher of beer. That pitcher of beer should come over here. I love that pitcher of beer.
Holidays are always a good time for sampling a decent amount of new craft beers. And I was just thinking about this. There's two reasons for this. You're either traveling to somebody's house who may have access to, some breweries that you may not. You may go out and pick up a sampler pack at, your local beer distributor here in Pennsylvania because you're having people over and they may not have, the same beer taste as you. So this gives the opportunity to try a bunch of different beers. This week, I am going to be reviewing what I am going to call the beers of Thanksgiving. I spent Thanksgiving in Chicago with my wife's family. As me, the wife, the three kiddos, pull up to my brother-in-law's house in the suburbs of northern Chicago, walk out on the back porch, and he's got his cooler full of different types of beers. There was probably like 5 or 6 different types of beers there. Brother-in-law is always good for, getting a bunch of different types of beers. Ones that he likes, ones that I like, one that my other brother-in-law likes. So reach down in there. The first one I pulled out was from Revolution Brewing in Chicago. It's the Hazy Pitch New England IPA. Revolution has a lot of great beers. A lot of some of my favorite beers that I sampled when I go to Chicago. This one coming in at 5% ABV. Give it a 450 down to 400. The next one that I got is called Boat Shoes. And I don't own any boat shoes, but I definitely drank some boat shoes. A Kolsch from Bagel Brewing coming in at 5%. Give that one a 425. Bring it down to 375. And then the piece de resistance of the cooler from New Glarus. And if anybody is not familiar with New Glarus is a brewery in Wisconsin, can only be bought in Wisconsin. Luckily, my brother-in-law and his wonderful wife make at least 2 to 3 trips up to Wisconsin every year. Brought back one of my favorite, and I don't know if I would call it an IPA, a PA. They call it a No Coast Pale Ale, the Moon Man, coming in at 5%. Man, New Glarus, the one that a lot of people will probably talk about is Spotted Cow. Great beer itself. Moon Man is my favorite. 5%. Give that one a 500 and bring it down to 450. A pretty high score for any beer. And the other part is that when you're out visiting family and friends, you may meet them at a local brewery, which is what my wife and I did. Met some of our friends out at a brewery, had one of my brother-in-laws tag along to have a good time. We went to Open Outcry Brewing. I sampled 3 beers from them. They had Eclipso. It is a New England IPA. 6.7 ABV. Give that one a 450. Bring it down to 400. Mosaically Yours, a Mosaic IPA coming in at 6.5%. Give that one a 425, bring it down to 375. And then there was the Speculator, a cream ale. I'm a sucker for cream ales. I love cream ales, even if it's Jenny cream ale. Believe me, this one's better than Jenny cream ale. But if you give me a Jenny cream ale in that green can, I'm going to drink the whole thing and I'm going to be happy. This one coming in at 4.5. Bring it down. I gave it a 450, so not bring it down from 4.5, bring it down from 450 down to 400. Like I said before, coming up on the next episode of Bucs in the Basement, Chris and I will be talking and giving our reactions to the Marco Gonzalez acquisition from the Atlanta Braves. And hopefully next week there will be some news for the minor league news and brews section. If not, guys, I'll come up with something.